Konnichiwa, hello and welcome. This is Roy at Goji Ranger 90, and today I will be reviewing the NECA Godzilla 2014 figure. And I got some things to say about it, so let's get things started. And now here we have the NECA Godzilla 2014 figure right before us in all of his super cool, awesome, fearsome, atomic glory. As you can see, this is the regular size 6-inch figure, and no, I don't have the box for this one. I got this one in the blister pack, so I don't have the box to review alongside the figure, so so much for that. But I do have the figure itself, and this is a really cool figure. I also have the NECA Toys figure, and I also have the 24-inch head to tail NECA Godzilla 2014 that roars, although mine needs new batteries. But anyway, looking at this figure, you can see he's a very dark charcoal gray colorization, and we can see the front part of his chest and his belly, and the underbelly is kind of where they kind of did some touch-ups with some sort of lighter green tannish, like kind of like lighter green tannish, like a little bit of brown in there, some paint apps, looking really good, looking as accurate as possible. NECA done at least the best job they could for a budget line for this figure. Bring him up close, you can see it has like those very yellowy Godzilla 2014 eyes. You can see that those pupils in there, looking really nice. You can see all those very beautiful weathered bone white teeth inside of his mouth. And of course, this one has smaller toes. The toe claws are black. The toe claws are not as splayed out as they are on the 2019, but it's still a cool design nonetheless. Also, the hand claws, I mean, you can't really tell. The hand claws aren't painted that much compared to the toes, but it's still there. They're still kind of sharp and pointy, as you can see. But overall, this is a cool figure, and I will be going over articulation, starting with the upper body portion, and then working my way down to the lower body portion, and ending more in depth with the rest of the figure. And yeah, this one also has smaller dorsal spines. Basically, if you read up about it, there's a comic that took place like before the 2014 movie where it was like the Muto Prime that shattered his dorsal spines, and like they grew back. That's why you see him with bigger dorsal spines in the 2019 Godzilla King of the Monsters movie, not to get that mixed up with the 1956 American release of the 1954 film starring Raymond Burr, but that's another subject for another day. So like I said, I will be going over articulation, starting with the upper body portion of the figure, then the lower body portion of the figure, and then getting more in depth with the rest of the figure. So let's get started. And now, starting things off with the upper body portion of the figure, as you can see, the head is well sculpted. The upper torso is well sculpted. Dorsal spines look really nice. Like I just pointed out, this one has smaller dorsal spines, but they look really good on this figure. As far as articulation wise, the head can move independently from the neck, so we can turn it all the way around, a full 360. Although the neck is kind of tight, we can also swivel the neck all the way around, a full 360, so we can look right, we can look left, and yeah, we can do all of that. The the jaw is also on a hinge, so we can open that mouth. We can, like I said, see all those beautiful bone white teeth in there. We also have a tongue inside of his mouth, if I can get that in focus. So yeah, there you can see it right there. We see that tongue inside of his mouth. The shoulders are also well articulated. They are on ball joints, so you can bring them up about that much. We can bring them back down about that much. We can rotate them around all the way around a full 360 and back the opposite way. Same is true with the other arm, as you are seeing. So articulation with this figure is symmetrical. We do have an elbow swivel on both arms, as you are witnessing. And we do have a hinge on both arms as well in the elbows, so we can bend those elbows forward and back. Same is true with the other arm. So we do have that. We also have a ball joint swivel in the wrist, so we can swivel those wrists all the way around a full 360, like so, just like that. And we also can rock them forward and back as well for that claw swiping action, although just very slightly, because we don't have a hinge in there. So anyway, we also have waist articulation, so we don't really have that much of an ab crunch on these figures at all, but we can rotate them all the way around a full 360 like so. But there's very little reason to do that, but just demonstrating, that's all. So that pretty much concludes it for the upper body portion of the figure. Now moving right along down to the lower body portion of the figure. And now, starting things off with the lower body portion of the figure, as you can see, the hips and the legs and the knees and the feet are well sculpted, very accurately, well, at least as accurate as possible, to where, NECA can get it. But anyway, as far as articulation, the hips can't really spread out too much at all, because if you try to force it, you're going to break the ball joints in the hips, and I don't recommend doing that, because NECA figures by this point, especially in the Godzilla line, it's hard to replace. So yeah, just don't do it. But anyway, the hips can rotate all the way around a full 360 on a ball joint, like so. So we can bring them out like that. We can also sit him down like that if we want to. So that's the thing. Or we can split the legs out like that and bring them down like that. But that's still kind of silly. But anyway, we also have a hinge in the knee, so we can bring the knee forward about that much. Not too much back, because the sculpt stops it. Right there, you can see how it has like that diagonally triangular cut. So if we bring it back, we can only bring it back to where it can just stand up. But anyway, we can just, same is true with the other side, like so. And we can swivel those knees all the way around a full 360 if we want to as well. But just like I said, same with the torso. It just makes very little sense to do this in the first place. So, but you still can. It's still an option. And we also have a ball joint swivel in the feet as well, so we can point those feet forward on a ball joint in those ankles and push them back, and we can rotate them all the way around a full 360 as well, just like you are witnessing. And as far as the tail is comprised of 1, 2, 3, 4 ball joint segments. The tip of the tail, the end of the tail, is a bendy wire, so that can pop out. So, but I'm not gonna bend mine because I don't want to rip it. So this is what the end of the tail looks like. You would have had to heat this up out of the packaging and pop this on the bootay of the figure. So that's how it works. Tail articulation is not the best on this figure, but it's doable, so we can move it about that far that way, and then about this much this way. Can we put him in a swimming pose? I can attempt, although I have my doubts with this one. So I'm gonna have to spread the legs out about that far, bring the arms back. Yeah, although it's gonna be, the legs are gonna be spread out in a swimming pose, and I can't really bring his head up too much, so that's the best swimming position you can get out of this one. Not the best at all, but it's still something. So, yeah, I think this is an overall good figure for the price. So now let's get more in depth with the figure, shall we? And now getting a closer look at the NECA Godzilla 2014 figure in more of a fuller view. Like I said, the tail, minimal articulation, but it's still doable for a figure at this price range. I just wish they would have re-released this figure with a fully segmented tail, but I guess they had their reasons for just, re-releasing it with the same old bendy wire. But anyway, if you do have, the cool thing is, if you do have the NECA Godzilla 2019 version 2, like the Heat Ray version 2019, the NECA figure, the 2014 is also compatible with the Heat Ray Breath Effect part that comes with that one. So if you have that one, you can use the Heat Ray Breath Effect part from that figure in the 2014 figure. So it works. So that is cool. This accessory does not come with this figure, but it's compatible with it. So just showing you guys how that works if you want to do that, or if you never thought you could. So that is a definite possibility. But anyway, this is a pretty cool figure. Well recommended if you were able to get him back in the day. I wouldn't pay aftermarket prices for this one now. For the price you're going to be paying for this one on eBay or Amazon right now, especially if you're looking for a legitimate figure, you're much better off just getting the Hiya Toys Exquisite Basic version. So, yeah, just letting you guys know. But anyway, my initial thoughts on this figure is overall positive. So, with that said, it is now time to get into my final verdict and giving you my final thoughts and opinions, and giving this figure a final score based on detail, articulation, and playability. So, let's get to it. And now for my final verdict on the NECA Godzilla 2014 figure here. If I have to give this figure a score based on detail, articulation, and playability, detail-wise, it is as movie accurate as they can possibly get it. It's not perfect, but it's still good for what it is. Articulation could be better in some areas, but it's still overall decent for a budget figure. Although there is some areas where I feel this figure could have been better in articulation. Playability-wise, this figure stays together relatively well, and I'm glad I got him when I did. So I can still recommend this figure, but only if you already have them. Like I said, I wouldn't pay aftermarket prices for this figure. So if I have to give this figure a final score, I have to give this one a honest 4.5 stars. Why am I taking points off? Well, my only complaint with this figure is I feel like NECA could have at least, since they had the 24-inch head-to-tail figure, could have at least re-released the same like head-to-tail 24-inch figure in a smaller scale, just with minus the roar effect. Wouldn't have this one with a fully segmented tail instead of a bendy wire tail, because a bendy wire tail this long and this thick on the end, just it's kind of disappointing when you look at the rest of the figure and compare this to the Hiya Toys version. Although I have to say the hands stay on a lot better on this one than the Hiya Toys version. But like I said, the big disappointing factor with this one would be the tail. Not that satisfying when it comes to a fully articulated Godzilla figure. I know NECA did this to cut costs, but yeah. really wasn't the best decision in the long term, if you ask me. But overall, I would say everything else about this figure gets a pass. So detail wise, it's good. Articulation is good, except for the end of the tail, so that's where I'm taking points off. And like I said, playability, it stays together really well. So there's nothing you have to worry about popping off on this figure too much. So it gets a pass on all of those categories except for, yeah, the tip of the tail. So I think they could have done better in that area. But anyway, guys, if you made it this far into the video, thank you guys so very much for watching. I appreciate your engagement and your attention span. I know I'm a talker and I can rant sometimes in my videos, but anyway, guys, but other than that, I will continue putting out more figure reviews. I have more coming on the way, and as always, like and subscribe if you haven't already. That really helps out this channel. And to wrap things up, stay safe, take care, God bless, and peace out.